Welcome back to the channel, everyone. I've got a really special guest with me today. I guess welcome back to both of our channels. This will be on Outreach Debate as well as my channel, but welcome, Nikhil.
Yeah. Hey, everybody. I'm Nikhil, but today it's my pleasure to introduce Mac. Mac debated at Durham Academy for 4 years and has continued coaching. Over his career, he has championed 15 tournaments, competed in nearly 150 elimination rounds, and coached teams to over 100 gold TOC bids. In college, he served as president of the Brown Debating, helping it lead the team to a number 2 national ranking. He also earned the Jeff Williams Award for Competitive Excellence and the Kyle Bean Service Award for his commitment to a positive and welcoming debate culture. This August, or I guess last August, he began a Fulbright Fellowship in Taiwan, and soon he'll be moving to Ecuador. But
Yeah,
yeah.
super cool stuff. Very excited. And Nikhil is pretty awesome himself. He's a junior at Trinity Prep with 4 years of PF under his belt already. He already championed and finaled lots of tournaments like Peach State, Blue Key, and the UK season opener. He got to semis of NDCA recently, and most recently was the sixth individual speaker at TOC. So he's been ranked as high as I think third in the nation. Is that right? And has already got 16 bids to the TOC as a junior, which is very impressive, Nikhil. And he's currently working with a program called Outreach Debate, which you've been with for, I think, 3 years at this point. So maybe that's where we can start this conversation because I'm super interested in Outreach Debate. So what is it that you do? Maybe you can give us like a brief introduction of what the program is like.
No, yeah, absolutely. So, Outreach Debate was founded in, I believe, 2021, 2022 by two people, Sam and Justine. And their goal was just to increase accessibility to debate both domestically and internationally. I kind of joined because one of my friends when I was a freshman debating in high school, Lon Arias, who debated for NSU, is one of the camp directors for it's like first summer. And he just called me up. He's like, "Hey, you want to coach?" And I was like, "Sure." Ended up doing that. Really loved teaching debate, probably more so than even debating. And I found it really like fulfilling and rewarding. So got a lot more involved with outreach. Was on their resources team. Continued to coach. And I served as their camp director in 2024 for the summer. And then kind of moved into a national director position this year. So what we do is we provide lectures online on a lot of debate subjects from lay debate to technical debate. We have a mentorship program in combination with the debate group and the debate hotline where we give mentorship to certain groups. I believe we've hosted 8 tournaments over the past 2 or 3 years. We have partnerships with the Coolidge Foundation, the Reagan Foundation, and also organizations like the NSDA we partner with sometimes, or we were featured in their rostrum a few years ago, which was nice. And we're hoping to expand. Right now, we're working on a Title I debate program where in a few states across the country, we're getting all of our instructors to go and teach at Title I schools. We're developing a curriculum and we're kind of pushing that out into the world. We're trying to increase our international push. Right now, I believe we have anywhere from 8 to 12 countries, depending on how many seniors stay on. And we're in 20 states. Our summer camps also reach more than like 250 people. Our winter camp, I think, had 30 to 40 instructors and like 200 to 300 kids. And we're hoping to do a lot more with our summer camp, I believe in August this year. So really excited. We're doing a lot to try to increase accessibility and access to debate. And hopefully we can continue to expand this year. But yeah.
Holy cow, that is very impressive. I mean, obviously, like incredible work that you're doing, and I'm really excited to see this kind of expansion that's happening. So, to clarify, the camps that you're mentioning, these are like free for debate students, right?
Yeah, completely free. We
That's
basically
awesome.
just get a bunch of like circuit debaters to volunteer. We give them some volunteer hours, and we have public signups. And we usually get like a lot of kids, like internationally as well. I don't know how good our marketing is, but we're getting like 200, 250 kids. So I guess it's good.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty incredible. It seems like a really cool model. I guess this is kind of a funny coincidence, maybe not so much of a coincidence, but I actually met Sam for the first time, who's one of the founders, because he was in my lab at another free camp called Nova, which was founded by my friend Nathaniel Yoon. Like this is like way back in the day. So it's cool that this has created kind of a legacy of new camps and new free opportunities to expand accessibility to other debaters. And the international
Yeah,
push is
absolutely.
really cool as well. Um, Yeah, maybe can you tell me a little bit more about how you work with other students from other countries to like expand debate opportunities there?
Yeah, so actually, one of our international directors, Usho, he used to debate for Taipei actually, and he's kind of our point person on all of the international. So when Sam first started, Justine was actually from Vietnam, so her school was abroad, so she had a lot more international appeal. We reached out to organizations. Our Discord has like 2,000 plus members, and people just join it. So randomly, we'll just get people that want to start chapters. Like I think last week we just had somebody from the Philippines who's like, "Yeah, I want to start one. How can I?" So we help them on that front. We give them resources, curriculum. We ran tournaments and camps for China, actually specifically for their national tournament. We were helping prep them. I remember doing that a few years ago. So it's kind of just we have Usho do it. He sets up the connections and partnerships, and then they kind of run debate within their own country.
Yeah, that's super cool. And it sounds like a lot of those circuits are growing right now. Like I'm in Taiwan teaching debate right now, so I have a little bit of I have some understanding of how the international scene is running. And it seems like, especially at the moment, there's an acceleration of lots of public forum, for example, opportunities in lots of different countries in Southeast Asia. China has its own big circuit that's continuously growing. I actually had some people from the China circuit email me recently on some of my videos. So that seems to be expanding a lot. I'm sure like most of this or a lot of this is due to some of the influence of programs like the Argument Institute. So it's really cool work that you're doing. And also
No, yeah.
I've seen the resources. I've seen the YouTube channel. It's been cooking, pushing out lots of videos. I'm a fan. So yeah.
Thank you. Trying to mirror the Mac channel, giving us all the insights into the debate space.
No, no, you're the
But
inspiration for
I,
me.
I guess you were talking about like your position in Taipei and Taiwan and how you're kind of in that space right now. Can you kind of like go into like one Fulbright scholar? Massive congrats. Why did you want to be a Fulbright scholar? What has been kind of your journey, I guess, in Taiwan for the last year, and how have you enjoyed it?
Okay, so lots of questions in here. First of all, I should explain like what even is a Fulbright scholar. I think I'm in a quite unique position. So Fulbright is a program that is run by the State Department in the US. It kind of goes both ways. So there are Fulbright programs for students from other countries to come study or do other things in the US. Um, and there are also Fulbright programs that send students from the US out into like other countries in the world. So that's one of the things that I'm a part of. Of those programs, most of them are for English teaching assistants. We call them ETAs, and there are ETA programs all over the world. For example, actually, this ties into maybe some of the other stuff that you might be wondering. The reason that I'm moving to Taiwan, or not Taiwan, moving from Taiwan to Ecuador next year is because my girlfriend is getting a ETA Fulbright of her own in Ecuador. So we're going to be moving there from Taiwan, where we are right now. So that's pretty exciting. And I'll be like, doing some service work and learning Spanish on the side while we live probably in Quito, if I had to imagine, but we're not sure yet. And so I am sort of a subset of all of that. I'm not an English teacher myself. The way that it's structured is like there's ETAs and then there's also like master students and PhD candidates. So there's the study grants. Some of my other debate friends actually have recently gotten those kinds of study grants to come to Taiwan, which is exciting. But there's this other weird like niche of just debate coaches, and there's only two spots in the entire world for a Fulbright debate coach, and they're both in Taiwan. The story behind this is a little bit complicated, but basically, a long story short, the director of Fulbright Taiwan specifically made it kind of his pet project to invest more in local debate because he cares a lot about it. And so we're the only like Fulbright country in the world that has some funding put aside for specifically debate positions. And they're looking to expand that in the future. So hopefully, like not next year, but maybe the year after, we'll have like four debate coaches or something, which will be super cool. The reason that I chose to apply to this is because I knew only a few things that I wanted to do after college. I knew one, I wanted to ideally live in another country because I never like had the opportunity or took the opportunity to study abroad while I was in college. I thought like, I'm in my 20s, like there's not gonna if I don't do it now, like when realistically am I gonna do it later? And it's something that I've always wanted to do is like actually like live abroad for an extended period of time. So that's number one that I wanted to do. Number two, I knew that I wanted to keep involved with debate in some meaningful capacity. And like other than that, I didn't really have that much of a plan. I knew eventually I want to apply to law school, which I'm still planning on doing. But I learned about the Fulbright Taiwan program from someone I debated with in APTA, which is what I did in college. And so she recommended that I join it because she had had the same position the year before me. And so I was like, hey, why not? I applied like super last minute. So I actually missed the deadline to get like a school sponsorship from Brown. But it didn't end up mattering. I still got in. And so I've been coaching in Taiwan ever since. What it looks like is I have kind of a crazy life. I every day, every weekday, I take like the high-speed rail to a different city in Taiwan. And then I go and I take like an Uber from the high-speed rail station to a school where I teach for maybe 2 to 4 hours. And so I have probably like 200 students in total. And I teach 8 different classes in 6 different schools. And the cool part, I mean, this is both cool and a little bit difficult. But the cool part is that they're scattered across all of Taiwan. Now, to be fair, Taiwan's not that big, but it does have like a huge mountain range in the middle. And so it's a little bit difficult to get around. Like I teach in Hualien, for example, which is on the East Coast. It's like a 3 hour train ride one way to teach like 2 classes. And I take the 3 hour train back to Taipei. But it's been a super cool experience, like super gratifying. The kids are all at like different levels of English and different levels of debate experience. Most of them have zero debate experience. But they've been like working very hard, and it's really cool to see them like start to become, I feel like, real debaters. And also the English progress has been incredible, especially in the schools with the that started with the lower average levels of English. So that's what it's like. If you are someone in high school or college, I guess more in college, and you're like wondering about options after college, this is a pretty cool one if you're a big debate nerd. So I would consider applying. The applications I think are getting a little bit more competitive each year as demand grows, but I think the supply will also increase. So it's a cool opportunity. I would highly recommend it. Yeah.
And what do you think has been like, I guess, the best moment? Because when do you leave? Like, when does your like, I guess, tenure like officially like end?
So it's about 1 year. It's like a full academic year. We leave in early August. I think the like grant officially expires in July. The best moments. Oh, this is a good question. I mean, the best moments are definitely like seeing these kids who started with like they're super shy, barely speaking any English, barely like speaking in class, to then like be competing in tournaments and like watching them in rounds, like integrating all of the lessons that they've learned, and then especially when they come back after, and then they like suddenly are like 10 times as motivated to learn all of the debate stuff. It's like
Yeah.
a flip of a switch in their minds, you know, and that's like just awesome because I think one of the coolest things about debate is that it creates more than any other space I've been a part of. It creates an internal motivation to learn. Like I feel like most of my love of learning is entirely because of debate. Like, I don't know where you could
No,
find
I
it.
completely agree.
Like, yeah, like I mean, I've done so many other extracurriculars. I've been part of lots of other academic communities as well. Like I did Science Olympiad, for example, in high school. But really, like, I feel like none of these spaces come close to the kind of like you don't see kids just like spend hours and hours of their free time beyond expectations, like just like learning stuff and preparing and like making themselves better. And when you combine this with learning a foreign language, I think it's really transformative. Like it has an exponential effect on the opportunities that are available to them in the future, which is really cool. So yeah, it's been super cool to see the students learn. It's also been a challenge, you know, like I don't speak very good Chinese, and so when lots of the students don't speak very good English, it can be challenging to get through to them. It's been one
Yeah.
of the things that's been challenging is like finding a way to balance between in classes where there's some students who like really get it and they have incredibly good English. Some of them, for example, have spent like months or semesters abroad in the US. But in the same class, you'll have students who like really do not have very good English and like kind of just zone out when you're speaking to them. So it's hard to teach the same lesson to very different levels of English comprehension. And so that's something I've had to navigate. But I'm super happy that I've done it. And I feel like it's upgraded my perspective as a teacher as well.
No, that's so cool. And I kind of like going off of that, the more and more I've been like coaching like my novices and kind of just been like more involved in debate. Like I love debating, but I feel like to a certain extent, like coaching, like even like the pre-round is so much more like gratifying or it's a little bit more
Yeah.
like fun because it's like of course you have a vested interest, but it's like you get to see it actually play out and you're not in that. So I
Yeah.
think it's like it's something distinct of like coaching and teaching that's like very unique and gratifying. But
Yeah, it's like it's addicting, I gotta say.
yeah,
Like I know I'll preach about how it's so important to educate people and give them more opportunities, but genuinely, like a good percent of the reason I'm still involved in coaching is just like it really is addicting to see like the gratification that comes from seeing students start to adopt your lessons and like find more success and find their voices from that. Just is personally so satisfying. So
yeah.
I'm excited to continue doing that. Yeah.
No, yeah. I've seen that. I was like coaching like outreach and I judged one of the rounds with one of my lab kids. I was like, wow, you're a lot better.
Yeah.
But it's very like cool to see like quick progression and even like just progression in general because it shows that like you actually did do something. I totally agree. That's kind of addicting.
100%. And I think I've like nowhere have I seen that more than there are a few Fulbright kids who qualified for the NSDA. So they're actually going in world schools. And it's a team of like five, obviously. So four of them are the Fulbright students. And all five of them have been working like literally so hard. Like every single week they do like three practices like on their own or with Taipei American School. We do like an additional practice each week with me. In addition to like the classes they're already taking, all of them like independently signed up for three tournaments. Like one of them I didn't even know about, so they just like went and found tournaments to sign up for. And these are kids like you have to understand, these are kids who like did not actually do almost any debate at all like
Yeah.
last year. Like
Yeah.
for some of them they did zero, and for others like they did like maybe one tournament. Like if there's one complaint I have about the local circuit in Taiwan, it's that there's not a lot of debate opportunities to like actually compete, right? Like
Yeah.
a lot of the schools that we teach, like the public schools, are centered around this one league that has like one tournament and it's like three rounds and one day and it's like you prep for like 3 months to debate like three rounds and then you're done.
Yeah.
That's like it. And so I feel like being able to give the students like show them this open world of like no, there are other competitive opportunities out there. Like you can find these like online competitions and you can do all of this other practice on your own. And teaching them to do that more than just like sit in their room for like an extra 20 hours researching a topic. Uh,
Yeah.
that has really, I think, leveled up their skills. But seeing them have this much motivation, like it's really inspiring.
Yeah, I think that also like once you start getting involved in debate, at least for me, it was like it was like an addiction. Like I swear, like I think my freshman year, I must have been like I think after my workload kind of picked up and I diversified, and I think once I got better at debate, the amount of time I spent at debate decreased.
Yeah.
Um, but like I remember my freshman year and even eighth grade, like me and my partner Lucy probably cuts more cards than anybody. But we were spending like 10, 20 hours. They had to like cap our coaching hours with our like the external coach the school paid for because they're like, yeah, you're spending too much time. But yeah, it really is kind of I feel like as both a debater and a coach, it's like you once you really get into debate, it's hard to like stop doing debate.
Yeah, yeah. And I think there's something like wonderful about that. Like, listen, all
Yeah.
prep moderation. You should prep smarter, not harder. You should not sell your soul to the devil. You should be friends with people outside of debate and like do other classes and be a full human being, right? With a full like experience. But at the same time, like really diving all in and like caring ceaselessly about an activity like this, I feel like that's like there's something incredible about that that is hard to find in a lot of other spaces.
And I feel like the same way. Like I learned a lot in school. I go to a good school, but I think like debate has helped me learn substantially more in depth and like give me nuanced like analysis of stuff I never would have considered. Right? Like no, you're and I. I was writing my AP Lang argument essay, and I literally was citing Tuck and Yang and writing about the expropriation of settler colonialism. In like there's certain things it gives you that like you wouldn't learn or be able to engage in other spaces. Like our school just buys us like philosophy books, like those buy us like Foucault, Kant, etc. And I would never have probably been interested in that had I not like done debate or been involved in debate. So I think it's like it gives you certain skill sets, and it gives you certain like interests that like people don't like. It's so much more than like being in a classroom, I feel like.
Yeah, dude,
But
that's
yeah,
sick. Tuck and Yang on the AP Lang, that's classic.
yeah.
I wasn't like that level, but I definitely remember like I there were certainly some arguments I pulled from the block files for some of my AP tests as well.
No, it's actually it's
Sure.
amazing. Like I think I was talking about I took like CompGov last year. I think I cited like hedge stability theory and Thucydides trap. Like maybe I was just throwing in buzzwords just to throw them in. But like no, there's so many things that I feel like helps, and I also think it helps with like I think right now is like a lot of people are very dogmatic or stubborn in the way in which they approach issues or just look at topics. And I think that's something debate helped me kind of get in. I was very like politically or very like involved. I had opinions when I was in middle school, and I really like to argue. But I think debate has helped me more like listen and adapt to that and kind of engage. And I think that's also outside of research skills or portable skills like public speaking. I think that's probably the most important thing people take away from debate is the like switch side debate. Like not to cite the T framework block, but like it's like I truly believe that like switch side debate is uniquely important because it helps you look at things from multiple different perspectives, and not take a stance, but rather make an educated stance based on like swaths of research. And I think that's something that a lot of debaters that I've met are able to do better than people that don't do debate.
Yeah, 100%. I feel like this like goes even deeper than just coming with to like educated conclusions with critical thinking. Like for me, I feel like if I really introspect, I think this has also helped me just become a better person. Like
Yeah, yeah,
not to like grandstand too much, but like really I think that a lot of my moral development has stemmed, at least in some part, from debate. At least from like the perspectives of debate, right? Like the practice of really seriously considering another person's argument. Um, I think like that's like such a special thing that is, I think, pretty unique to debate. Like only in debate do you have like a million incentives to just hang on every single word of another person's argument and really consider like what do they mean, what is their perspective, and like take it seriously. Like for example, like as stupid as like some of these crazy impact turns are, right? Like warm and good. There's something to be said about the perspective that debate offers you, where you actually take crazy positions seriously and then logically dismantle them. Like I feel like this is something that's incredibly important for my own like social life even. Like when I get into conflicts with people, it's much easier for me to empathize with them, I think, because of the skills that I've had in debate. Like to really consider their perspective seriously instead of only sticking to mine. And to like, maybe I still disagree with them at the end. I'm not gonna like become someone who has no beliefs, which I feel like is sometimes a stereotype about debate. But it allows me to consider other people's beliefs in a much more, I think, empathetic way.
no, I completely agree. I think that when you're able to like rationalize or not even rationalize, just like actively listen, and actively want to engage, I think that makes a big difference. I think we can wax on and on about like the research, like personal benefits that debate has, but I think that a lot of times people focus on the very like I guess tangible like metrics, like the NSDA posts like, oh, your T score will go up, right? But like what I say to like the kids on my team when people want to join the debate team, I'm like, you get an experience where you're able to challenge perspectives, engage with others. The big sellers travel because our team is fortunate enough to be able to travel to tournaments. I'm like, you can go hang out with your friends somewhere you want to go. But I really do think that interpersonally, it helps. And another thing I think is that something that's unique to things like policy or public forum debate is that they have partners. I remember that like my personal growth from my partnership has been very good for me. I think I started off, and a lot of people probably know this. I was very stubborn. I was very just like, we're doing it this way. And my partner, Lucy, is probably one of the nicest people in the world. Very non-confrontational. So sometimes she would accept me being like too much, right? And I think over time, I've kind of realized how to become a better partner and how to engage with people in a perspective where you respect them, you trust people more, and you're able to kind of um, adapt to those perspectives and be more empathetic, be able to work in a team better because you understand that to win a public forum round, if you're arguing more than 10 seconds with your partner, you're not engaged, you're going to lose. And I think that when you kind of build that cohesion and you learn that you need to trust and engage with other people, it really helps in all respects. And I think personally, like this year, I'm not crashing out after rounds. We're not arguing during prep, right? It's like more like you gain like an understanding of how teamwork works. And I think that's important.
Yeah, 100%. And I feel like you probably have a unique perspective with this, having had so many partners. Um, so yeah, I feel like, do you want to share anything about like what is it like? First of all, what have you learned from that experience? But also like what are some good tips for people who might be bouncing between partners quite often?
Yeah, so just for some context, me and my partner Lucy Chong debated together since we were around eighth grade. I actually started off in info in seventh grade. I was a speech kid. And then my debate coach, Mr. Gaddis, realized I made a kid cry in a mock trial in seventh grade. And Mr. Gaddis realized that he talked to the administration because we were going through some some of that, and he was just like, yeah, I think you might be better served in debate. So he pushed me towards Lincoln Douglas, and I really loved it. I became really involved like pretty quickly. I had fantastic coaches to start off with. I had this guy named Eric Lanning. He actually won the NDT back in the 2010s, and he really helped with my initial development. So I did that. My coach didn't really believe in novice. So basically, I was in eighth grade competing in varsity. And
Thanks.
I think I went 1-5, 2-4 at most tournaments. I was getting thrown um, a lot. But I'm the type of person that like when I lose and I care about something, I very much just like, oh, I really, really want to win. So
Yeah.
I would just like spend like hours and hours like grinding. So did that for a while. Then my dad saw me go 5 off versus like I think AfroPest or something at Longhorn when I was in finals of actually novice. And he's like, I don't know the portable skills of this. I think you should do public forum.
Wait, that's
So
so funny. Okay, that's
yeah,
low-key a true argument. Like, I don't know, like, this is kind of a non sequitur, but I feel like people need to start actually making this argument in theory shells. It's
yeah.
just true. Like, the argument that like parents and coaches and teachers will pull their funding or pull their kids if they see like a certain kind of debate. It's just factual. Like,
Yeah, and my dad
unfortunately,
has gotten a lot more engaged in debate. I would say, like, I think he understands it better, but like the idea of spreading to him at first, he's like, why am I paying a lot of money for you to go do this?
yeah.
So after that, I decided to go to public forum. And then Lucy and I debated together for up until this year. My freshman year, actually, I also had another partner. He was kind of like my mentor. He was a senior on my team my freshman year when Lucy wanted to take a brief break. So debated with him for like 2 months, I think December, and we did really well. I think we bid at like every tournament we went to. But he really helped me develop as well. He kind of like just like was like a friendly mentor. I'm actually getting lunch with him probably soon,
Nice.
but that was kind of my first thing of like switching partners. And I kind of realized that people very much do have different styles of debate. Like to Lucy, she doesn't respond as well to like me just spewing the arguments like at her. But Shrieker, I would just like say every single argument and then he would say it in the speech or like after round if he messed up, I would just like crash out at him and we would do reading. And that's how we were to each other. Like I remember like first round blue key round robin, we're going for disclosure. Um I don't know what he was doing. I just remember he did not do something. And I remember us like doing redos for like 30 minutes. And in certain debate partnerships, you can do that. In certain ones, you have to like respect that there's different boundaries and that there's different ways to learn. So that was kind of the first thing, like learning who your partner is. This year, Lucy decided to kind of take a break from debate for a bit. We'd been debating for like so long, and burnout really is real. And Lucy's the type where she's probably one of the smartest people I know, anything she does, she'll be like pretty good at. So she did like science fair and she was at ISEF this week. Like there's those types of things where like when you spend so much time doing debate, you don't really have time to explore those other opportunities. Like we spent a lot of weekends away from friends, like we missed like big moments. So she wanted to experience that more, which was completely valid. I think another thing is like on the circuit, we were pretty well known, but there's just and it's systematic, and it really should be understood that there is sexism in debate. And I think having a female partner really helped me like understand that. Like if we go into a round and we're talking to teams, they'll talk to me first. They won't talk to her first. If we're engaging in an environment that's like very much male dominated, it's hard for her like people to engage, right? And it's hard to stay motivated, especially when our team a lot of the times is recognized by me more so than her. And Lucy was really a phenomenal debater. And I think that kind of weighed on her a little bit. So those are reasons that she kind of left. And so then I went with my other partner, Amanda Rose, who's also fantastic. We finaled Blue Key, semi Peach State. We didn't debate too much, but what we did good. And she's basically like a big sister to me. So she drove me to my internship and back. So we had a good like partnership. But at first, I was a little bit combative in rounds because I'm like, when you mess up, sometimes I'm like, okay, we have to like work on this right now. And that doesn't work for some people. There's also some times where like you have to deal with people's anxiety levels and you have to deal with how people actually engage in rounds. For Amanda Rose, she's so good in round, but for Lucy, we debated mostly off paper, and Amanda Rose was almost wholly online, right? So you have to adapt your style. So with Lucy, we would spend all the time literally just like me telling her arguments and she would write them down on the flow. But in prep time for Amanda Rose, I would just be typing, right? So or like telling her arguments and then she would tell me exactly where she needed and I would type there, right? My next partner, I just kind of picked up for one tournament. Ashton, he's my best friend. So I was like, we might as well like ball. And we had a lot of fun with that. I think that's probably one of the most fun tournaments. We were just messing around the whole tournament. We went to Cav round robin. That's phenomenally run. I think that's probably my favorite round robin I went to. I think we got third or fourth, but we were just experimenting, messing around with random stuff. But with him, it was very much like I would take 3 minutes. I would just take certain arguments and we would help him explain the arguments to him. And he was very good at policy, where some of my other partners were better at like K-debate. So it just changes your strategy and stuff. So I think, sorry, I know I've been going on a long rant, but I think that some of the tips that you should like positively gain from switching partnerships is one, you have to understand your partner's strengths and weaknesses. And you can't be stubborn to allow your own ego or your own forms of debate override that, because if you don't adapt to them, you're going to lose. I think two is, and I've learned this over time, you should not yell at your partner. You should not argue with your partner. If your partner messes up in a round, you cannot get angry at your partner and like hold that into rounds because that will only spiral into you continue to lose. And I think that's something I only like really realized this year, and I think that like helped with my competitive success. But when you make debate fun, you get better at debate. And I think when you have fun with your partner and like you have those moments of like Lucy and I had one at the TOC when we were debating Nueva. Like when you have those moments where you really connect with your partner, you're on the same level and you're having fun. That's really what debate is. And your partner and you will get better at debate and want to debate more together when you do those things. So I think no matter what partner you have, you kind of have to sit down a little bit and like think about what they need more so than what you need. And try to adapt to each other because there's something to be said about partner cohesion. Like I think Lucy and I will forever with all of my partnerships. I'll probably always debate best with Lucy because like she understands how I debate at a level that nobody else will, just because we've debated together so long, right? Remembers me when I had braces debating. But like I think that definitely getting new partners, it's easy to adapt if you want to adapt. Like it's not a question of like you can't continue winning rounds if you have a new partner. It's just how much effort you want to put into it. But yeah, I know I just talked for like 10 minutes straight, but
No, that was great. That was like exactly the response I was looking for. It's interesting. I feel like a lot of this kind of brings me back to my high school days as well. I feel like I had a pretty similar experience. So I partnered with Esme Longley, who was incredible at debate, but she also didn't have the ability to attend like a lot of the tournaments that I wanted to go to. So I also kind of bounced around some other random partners, some like random friends who didn't even do debate. etc. And I think I have a lot of the same exact takeaways that you just mentioned, which makes sense. Like I was kind of, oh man, I was kind of an asshole at the very start. And like
No, I definitely was.
oh, it was really bad. Like looking back,
Yeah.
even like looking back at some of the recordings that I have of me debating, like really like pretty cringe. I think I
No,
was
like I feel the same way. I was looking back at a recording and I was spending like 2 minutes of prep time literally just spewing arguments at
yeah.
Lucy, and she was furiously trying to write them down. I'm like, in hindsight, I'm like, just like, what are you doing? Like, just like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, we had to like I feel like we both were asserting our egos a little bit over each other at the very start. Me just because I'm a straight white male, and her because like she went to camp when I didn't in one of the summers. And so there was like a little bit of a tension at the very start of our debating. But then I think that we both learned, and mostly I think I learned, how to have more partner cohesion as time went on, and how to like respect each other and adapt to each other's debate styles. And so by the end of our debate career, we were like watching Avatar: The Last Airbender together, like on every flight to a tournament and stuff.
No,
I think it's a good idea to be friends with your partner. I know some
yeah.
people are like keep debate separate from like your social life, but nah, you
I
should.
completely disagree. Yeah, like I think that like some of like the people I hold like closest or like my like closest friends are involved in debate. Like within my own school, like half of my freshman year, actually, I recruited literally most of my friend group to do debate. Eventually, some of them quit, but like our like second team, like Ashton and Gustavo, both some of my best friends. Lucy and Amanda Rose are like sisters to me. So I think when you like kind of make it like a family type of thing, it makes you want to go to tournaments because you're like, oh, it's just like spending time with like people you like. I also think that like that's the reason a lot of like junior teams and like upperclassmen perform better. It's not that they have better technical skills, a lot of the time. It's that they've developed that partner cohesion, I think, or like they've developed like an understanding of debate. Because to be frank, like freshman year, I think we probably had that similar technical level to what I have now. Just because I worked so hard. I was watching DDI like every single day. Um, but like I think that one, I learned late debate, so that definitely helped later. But I also think like when you have good relationships with partners and are better able to like understand that, you just do better. And I think that's like the best incentive to for people. Just like you will be better if you like get along with your partner.
Yeah, it's also just more fun. Like
Yeah, yeah,
you, if you're going to tournaments and you're like winning the whole tournament, but you're like fighting with your partner outside around the whole time, like
yeah.
that's not a good experience.
No, it's not a move.
Yeah, for sure. But I think that like I want to talk about sexism in debate as well. Because I also like definitely saw that like up front, right? Like there were lots of tournaments where when I first started partnering with male partners when Esme couldn't go to some tournaments, like crazy difference in how people and judges treated us. It was like way low key, like way easier to win with just like a random person who had no idea about debate. I would just like feed extensions to, like, okay, extend this argument every time. They would just say this way and then be done. Would make so many mistakes and then we would like win rounds. I'd be like, what? How did we win that? It's like a 10, like you can feel it. Like first tournament difference is crazy. Um, and there's so many different examples of this. Like, I remember after my senior year, I did a little like project where I compiled all of the PF rounds online into a spreadsheet and like organized them chronologically. This was COVID. I had nothing better to do, you know? And then I realized like I could use this data for other stuff. So I tried my best to like do an objective approach with some other people to try to find how many like women were in these rounds that were recorded. And we did a statistical analysis. It was crazy. It was like I think there were more rounds online with zero women than with one or like two or three or four combined, right? So then with any, I guess, which is ridiculous and like even a worse discrepancy than the actual participation of women, even if you like control for success factors as well. So there's just like a lot of systematic things. And I've also like been thinking about this on this channel as well. Like, dude, if you look at my videos, it's like man. It's
Yeah.
like it's getting disgusting at this point. But one of the things I've been thinking about is balancing systemic approaches to combat sexism in debate and like increase representation with like tokenization stuff as well. Like I found myself recently thinking like, wow, I need more women on the channel, or like, we need to hire more women for this program, or like whatever. But it feels a little bit gross as well to just be like, oh well, we're hiring you because you're a woman or something, or like I'm putting you on the channel because I need to put a woman on the channel, not because like I value your opinion or something. Um,
I think that's definitely a problem, but I think if you really look at it, like some of the best debaters I've ever met are women in this space. And like I would say my partner Lucy and Amanda Rose are some of the best debaters I know, right? And no matter like if we're both going for a coaching thing, we both are equal, I would say, in that perspective, right? So like that's why I believe that like yes, more representation is needed, but we need to change the mindset because I think it also stems from like a bit of like a debate bro, like cloudy type culture where
yeah, 100%.
there's these circles that are a bit hard to get into where it's male dominated. Males dominate who becomes like in the circle or is the people that are deemed good, right? And I think that like systematizes the idea that like you have your in groups and you only focus on your in group, and anybody else is the out groups. You don't engage with them, right? And I think that's really wrong, and I think we need to change the way we view like that, right? Like if you're a male team going against a male and female partnership, you should be talking to both the male and female partnership, right? And I think that's something that like both of my partners have like actively told me, and I'm like, yeah, like this is something that's happening, right? Like same thing with like I think hiring practices have gotten a lot better. I think the debate is space is moving in a direction that is good. But I think there's definitely a lot of like work to be done. And I was a bit like a lot like when I was in ninth grade, I had a lot of personal growth. I was like stuck in this idea like there's a lot of girls in debate. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
And I think that like kind of like when as I like heard and like experienced my female partners like experiences and the way it demotivated them, right? And like it made them sad and it just hurt to like see, right? And I think that's like why it's something important to work on is because like especially if you don't have a female partner and especially if you don't have a team where there's a lot of girls, you just feel like, oh, like this isn't a problem, right? And I think that's why like people need to work on it and actively work on it. So like actively like spread information on it, actively do it in things like hiring practices. Like for example, like I think we should make a conscious effort to record more female rounds, right? Because even like when you're watching rounds, if you're only watching men, you're going to associate men with debate, right? And that's like unconscious. And those are the systemic things, like you said, that are engaged, right? But if we actively like our channels, right? Like if outreach starts posting more, we actively go to the TOC and say like to some like phenomenal like girl teams like Nueva or like even like half and half teams, right? I think that would incentivize like people seeing representation, and I think representation does matter. And I think it does make an impact.
Yeah, it 100% does. I mean, like, I feel like it's become even more clear to me since coaching. Dude, there's nothing more sad than like coaching women in debate and then they like quit because the activity sucks for them. It's like, it's really, I feel like I don't know. It's one of the saddest experiences, I think. And
Like
I'll, yeah.
no, like I completely agree, and I think a lot of the times like the partners are part of the problem too. Like I think that me too, like I got sucked into a little bit of a debate bro culture. Or like you want to be included, right? And sometimes if you're like in a male female partnership, when you want to be included, you'll go and like because they'll engage with you, right? So you'll go engage with that group, and then your female partner is left, right? And I think that there's some things that like as a partner you have to take an active stance on, and you have to be like aware and intentional about the ways in which you engage in that, and it really sucks to see like some of the smartest, most engaged, and the ones that love debate. Like it's not that they don't love debate, right? They love it probably more than I do, we do. And of course they can speak to it better than we can. But I think it is truly like a problem, and it's something that people should recognize that girls and women are leaving debate because they believe that they don't see themselves winning. They don't see people around them like integrating them into a culture. It's hard to make friends with some of the debate bros. Like there's all of these things that are happening, and it's like it is super like hard to see those people like leave.
Yeah, 100%. That's all definitely true. I think there's useful discussion to be had about potential solutions and like the role of men in debate as well in combating this, like the
Mhm.
responsibility that we have. I think that you're spot on with like the diagnosis of the like debate bro culture in these like social circles. It is so systematic and so prevalent. Like there are so many group chats that exist where people just talk about like how good people are at debate and just use their like records on tab room the whole time, but then only talk about like men, like every single time, even controlling completely for competitive success. Like there's so many more discussions just like worshiping dudes in the activity for being like better at debate. And I feel like this is obviously due to like a lot of cultural things. I mean, for one, like I think there's a it is true that boys in general in high school, like straight cis men, tend to be friends more with other guys, are awkward around girls and many times. But the unfortunate thing is that this creates like friend groups within the debate space between people who have more like reputational and social power. And then this even passively, even if this was the only factor, this I think contributes to a good amount of the kinds of systematic exclusions that are faced by women in debate as well. Because so much of debate is controlled by reputation, is controlled by just like that like factor of being well known and like having people know your name. Like even from a judging perspective, like I'm not gonna lie, if I know your name, it's probably more likely I vote for you. Like it just is. I can try to control that bias as much as possible, and I do, but like,
No, like if you're in a team and it's 50-50 and you're judging like a top 10 team versus a no team, I would say 9 times out of 10, that judge is picking up the team they know,
yeah,
right? And
100%.
that and it's a question of name recognition. This the same way I completely agree. Like once we were pretty good as freshmen. Like I think we got like 6, 7 bids when we were both freshmen. So that kind of like helped our like reputation. Like I cared about it a lot when because I think that is a driving factor for a lot of people. It's like it's motivation. Like I remember, like you kind of idolize other debaters, right? And I think that's probably bad, first off. But second, I really do think that's like some sort of motivator. And when you do those things, you aspire so much to have that name recognition that often you forget like other people that are good or that engage or and the people that are talked about, like even with our team, right? Like we were doing pretty good at Trinity, but it would be like Nikhil's team, right?
Yeah,
Or it'd be like, oh yeah, Nikhil won that round, right? That's so like it delegitimizes all of the effort that like my partners put into the activity, right? And I think that's a problem of just like pure rhetoric. Like
yeah,
one statement is what can generate like people feeling bad,
yeah,
right? And I think that we just I think everybody just needs to be like intentional. Like
yeah,
it's just like you have to be self-aware. And it's
100%.
like
And
and
also,
I think once people start doing that, it will resolve. Because
yeah,
once you start like having like there are a lot of male female partnerships. Like once you start having like a lot of like more like I feel like people like working together, everybody is friends together, and you kind of like stop that innate factor to like associate like the male, then it will increase the amount of people in the activity
yeah,
that are.
yeah, definitely. I think this is like a much bigger factor as well than some of the factors that people like oftentimes associate. Like, I think sometimes when people talk about sexism in debate, they imagine this like not fictional, but I think over exaggerated in terms of like how often it happens scenario of like men being overtly sexist or judges being overtly sexist. Now, this happens, to be clear, and it happens too much still. But this, I think, is not the primary component of like the systematic sexism that exists within high level debate. I think the more pernicious effects are definitely just these like social circles where people can claim legitimately like they are not doing anything wrong, and they're not part of the problem, and they can believe that they're not part of the problem while still creating a system or still like participating in a system that I think creates an enormous amount of exclusion, and creates biases in technical judges' minds who think that they're completely unbiased. Like if you just one statement, if you say like Nikhil's team, for example, and I hear you say that, and then I judge Nikhil and Lucy, I'm gonna be
You might
like,
give higher speaker points. Yeah.
right, like I'm gonna know, oh, this is Nikhil, this is that Nikhil, but and then I guess his partner is also Lucy, but that's always gonna be like the second thing that I think about. That's always the second person that I think about if I have heard your name before. And it's like something that I should control and something that I have a responsibility to check against, but is often, I mean, the best solution is to cut it at its root, right? And I think that requires a responsibility on the part of bystanders as well, or recipients of these. Like, first of all, a responsibility on the part of people who would otherwise be saying this not to, right? But also a responsibility on the part of anyone who's hearing this. Like, even if it seems tiny, and even if you think that there's a reputational cost of stepping in, I think that there is a bit of an obligation to as well. Like to say, hey, like, you mean like Lucy and Nikhil, not just Nikhil, right?
No, no, and I completely agree. And I think freshman me would have might have like, and a lot of debaters just have like it's an ego thing. Like, oh yeah, like that's me, right? But I think like you have to like recognize like, nah, like that's not me. Like
Yeah.
you have to like kind of break out of that kind of cycle of just like wanting clout or like wanting to be somebody super huge in the space. Because that you kind of lose yourself, I think, to a certain extent. You lose some of your ethics when you're chasing that. And I think that there are very good debaters that I know that are like super nice and welcoming to females in the space. So it's not like it's going to cost you like reputationally. Like you just should take a stand for certain things. And I think that everybody universally like thinks about that. I also think it's something that we need to do is like on a coaching level, like when I go and coach, like I'm going to tell my debaters like, and it's all informed because of my experiences with my female partners and my team that's super like open and engaged in like discourse about this right like I think I would not have been as receptive to this had I not had those teammates
Yeah.
right but I think if you on a coaching level like articulate this to your teammates like I remember we had a coach Kaminsky, he's the only reason I'm good at debate at all. um he more so like even not even like technical coaching, it was just like mentorship, right? Like you through debate go through certain circumstances and people ask for advice, right? And I think that's what a coach is to a lot of an extent. It's like we help you like learn what a K is. We also help you understand these types of nuanced arguments. Like when you're debating Orientalism, right? You're critiquing the ways in which we view non-Western bodies, right? That's forms of unconscious racism, right? I think that even when you're engaging in policy positions, right, there's certain things like I think there's certain topics like I remember my partner Lucy, super again like what I can't say enough good things like super ethical, right? We were reading this argument. I cut it about how undocumented workers are key to labor. In the United States, right? It's key to the agriculture industry, right? And every time we were hit with like exploitation answers, we were just like, hey, like the economy goes down, that increases more exploitation, right? And I think you view people less, right? And I think that's bad. And I think it decreases empathy for other people. And I think like once you as coaches kind of pick ethical positions, because you can win with ethical positions and take ethical stands for like this is problems in debate, these are problems that you shouldn't be doing. I think those are all things that like people should take an active effort out. Like for example, outreach for our summer camp this year. Every single post that we put up, I'm pretty sure, we made an active effort has like the same amount of women are posted as men. We have an equal ratio of female to male instructors, and in every lab there'll be both a female and a male instructor. Right? Those are active decisions that we have made on how we want our camp to be run. Right? To increase representation, increase engagement, etc. Right? So I think macro level, but yes, there are definitely problems within these partnerships. But once you kind of make it a problem, right? And we continue to say, like, hey, we're actively trying to solve this, more people will start to become self-aware,
Yeah.
become more intentional, right? And I think it starts with debaters that have reputation, right? Because, for example, like you just interviewed Eshan. I remember I looked at Sean so much. Like, if Eshan said something, I probably would have done it, right? So I think it starts with like kids that have reputations in the space need to kind of do that. And then I think it will trickle down.
Yeah, I 100% agree. If there is a culture that promotes inclusion and like punishes, at least to some extent, like reputationally, like rhetoric that is exclusive, even, passively exclusive, I think. I think there should be a high premium for that. And not like I think not just like a competitive premium for this, right? I think it's not all IVIs. It's not all like that's a link, you know? It's also just like, hey, like we should be talking in a more inclusive way. Like, I don't know. I feel like that people have a mental barrier to this, like thinking, well, that sounds cringe or something. Or like, also, I think people are worried about like walking on eggshells around issues of like sexism and racism and other things like that. And I think that that's really like a misplaced worry. Like, of course, we should be careful with how we speak. But my opinion is that people are way too scared to like have discussions about like women in debate. And they're like way not scared enough to have like very casual discussions that also exclude women in debate. You know, like they're always scared of saying something that's actively bad, but never scared of saying something that's passively bad. When I think having those active discussions is like really also important. Like for example, in rounds, in FemK rounds, or in rounds about racism, in rounds with pre-fiat voters, people just don't like people just turn off their brains. Like they don't even contest the method at all, or if they do, it's like very surface level. And this is a general statement. Not everyone is like this. But I feel like way too many people are just like scared out of their minds over talking at all about issues of racism or sexism when they're not when they don't represent the identity that's being discussed. And I think that that fear makes sense in some cases, but is taken like is applied too far and is kind of used, I think, to some extent to excuse yourself from important discussions that you should also be a part of.
No, I completely agree. And I think that, and a lot of people know this, or some people know this about me. Like, for a long time, I was really an opponent of identity positions, and still to a certain extent, like I'm not the biggest like identity K. Like I'm probably not the best person for it, but like for example, I was like I told my female partners when I was younger, I was like, oh, it's gonna create backlash. Like this is not gonna do anything. Like what is this gonna do, right? I started to become like I think the TOC is the first time I ever ran it, and I became it was just because my female partner like really felt passionate about it, right? And my other partner, Amanda Rose, that's like all that was like her main strategy, right? She cared so much about it. And that's why I believe I became more and more like not opposed. I still probably wouldn't read too many identity positions just because like I don't know, I'm just somewhat I believe that like some of the discourse warrants and some of those stuff, like more like actual like technical stuff. But I think those conversations like need to happen. And sometimes those identity Ks are good at creating it. Like there's this warrant evidence that I low-key think is true. Like once you lose to a position, you have a cognitive dissonance where you understand what another side feels like to have something be unfair, right? And when you lose something that you truly care about, maybe then you'll be like, yeah, maybe I need to do something, right? Like maybe I need to think actively about those passive things. And that's why like it's been a pretty rapid turnout, but I think like this year specifically, I've been a lot more like open. Because before I was not open. And I think that it's good to see in debate like people have those discussions. And I think we definitely could do a better job at coordinating those discussions, articulating the critiques, being more engaged on positions and literature, etc. But I think that like for example, even in college, right? A lot of the block against non-T is just T framework, right? Which is definitely a good position, right? But I think there's certain teams, like I know Kansas does a lot. They look at K debate and approach it from a different perspective, right? And I think that that's an approach to K debate that I like better. Like I think Plano did a good job actually in the round I watched at semis of the TOC. I was working with the Eastridge a little bit before the round, but I think that the counter method debating was actually very interesting, right? And I think that that's something that's so underdeveloped, right? Everyone just goes for the topicality block. And me myself, I'm a T hack, so I would probably go for the topicality block too because I just really like topicality. But I think that like method debating and actually engaging with the position is something that's so underdeveloped. And I think there's so many paths to the ballot off that. Like there's so many offensive arguments you can make off that that will win you rounds, right? Well, Plano proved it, right? But like, I think that's a new way we should look about approaching identity positions. I still think beating T is difficult as like from the K perspective. Like I think if you're a good K debater versus a good T framework debater in PF, T framework is probably going to win. But I think that like we should model trying to engage the position from multiple different like perspectives.
Yeah, I completely agree. This is one of the hotter takes that I've had for a while, is I think that there's a lot to method debate. That was actually the strategy from Plano in that round. We talked about a lot in the pre-round. We were on the Zoom call. I actually recommended that like maybe they spend a lot less time on T because we knew that they were going to read the IVI against T and be like T is sexist or whatever, which in my opinion was probably the one way that Plano could lose that round. And that actually ended up being the collapse from Eastridge. So we predicted that pretty well. But we had like a doc of like, I think like 12 IVIs or something against like different parts of the FemK, and then just like multiple counter methods. And then the theory about like we had a lot of theory preempts against any argument they would make about models of discourse that would discourage like that would disincentivize the actual discourse about which method is superior, if that makes sense. And I think that that's a very good way of engaging in case. I think that, like, from the discussions I've had with policy people as well, it seems like way too many people are convinced by this position that it's like impossible to debate a K on the method. And that this is just sort of like a foolish, like a fool's errand because it will always be like either one, it will be something where you can't engage because you don't have that identity, or two, they will like intentionally make the method vague enough that they will always just perm your counter method. And then they will like be ahead on the theory debate about why that's okay. I kind of disagree with all of this. Like I think this is all nonsense, to be completely honest. I think we desperately need a theoretical foundation for a method of K debating in which both sides have a competitive incentive to create the best solution to the problem in the real world. Um, and that's like, I mean, I feel like that's the whole point of K debate. Like that is literally right. Like, at least the K debate. I mean, everything is called K debate these days, right? There's a lot of different types of Ks, but at least the kind
Yeah.
of debate that we're talking about, like the FemK, the identity positions, the KAF, I guess, is one way to look at it. Um, I feel like the model of that K debate needs to be such that it is a viable path for the team responding to the K to engage in productive discourse and be able to win off of that. And I think that that kind of response works very effectively because I think that's very persuasive. Like if you're able to read enough theory arguments that say like, look, if you vote for this argument, it necessarily shuts out any potential for us to get a ballot by doing the most productive discourse, which means in future rounds, you're teaching us we should not do productive discourse, right? You're teaching us the only recourse we have, the only way we can win this round is with theory, or the only way we can win this round is with T. And that's what you're saying if you vote, if you cast a ballot on this position. For example, like this has evolved for a long time, but I feel like one of the first instantiations of this was like, um, oh, who was it? It was Ransom Everglades, reading these positions where they would have framing about women in a post-fiat argument, and then they would put spikes in it that were like, vote for us because we brought attention to this issue. And they would have like a bunch of theory, like paradigm issue spikes about why this is like the highest layer. Um, and I always taught kids like the way to respond to this is you have to catch them making an argument that forecloses your ability to win the round with discourse, with any like with anything that is productive. If they foreclose your ability to win the round in a productive manner, then they're forcing you into something that is less productive for their discourse as well. Like all you need to win is that there is a model of K debate that they could incentivize that is more productive for their goal than the model that they are currently incentivizing. So, for example, what Ransom would do is they would say, like, if you also have discourse about women, ours is better because one, we will read it next round. You might not. Two, we introduced it, right? So you're only doing this because we did this first. And so ours is more genuine and ours is better. But this kind of argument logically implies that there is zero way to win with discourse against this argument, right? That like even if you bring more discourse to it or you have higher quality discourse, if the way to evaluate whose discourse is better is by who read the argument first, well, you don't have a time machine. And so then if that is the case, then the only way you could have won the round is not with discourse, is with theory, is with T, is with whatever else you have, which is not productive. It's not something that helps under their role of the ballot. It's not something that actually helps in any pre-fiat way, which means by logical extension, their model of K debate is disincentivizing a more productive discussion that we could have.
I think that's a fantastic K response. Like, I think that's probably one of the best like responses to discourse-based methods. And of course, you could have probably more nuanced debating about like whether or not their model of discourse can ever be better or whether they're trying to do it for a ballot, et cetera, et cetera. But I think that's definitely a strategy more people should employ. Like, I think that like T framework is good. But people need to answer the critique in a substantive manner that isn't just back files, but should be more critical, innovative thinking.
Yeah,
Like I'm not the biggest like K debater. I'm pretty good at responding to it. I'm not as good at reading it. But I do think that there is the more and more I've gotten involved with it, there are immense educational benefits to criticizing your foundations of logic and reasoning, criticizing foundations of activities you engage with. It exposes you to a more robust literature base, and you can engage in. And, to be frank, for contextually for everybody, I mostly only read policy positions. Like I'm a policy debater through and through. I'd rather go for the case debate than the K debate, right? But I do think there are immense educational benefits sometimes to engaging in both topical and like to an extent non-topical critiques. But
for sure. For sure.
yeah.
I think it's especially possible in a way that people aren't considering in PF. Like PF has a unique logical symmetry, if that makes sense, where the pro and the con have equal burdens. You could flip the pro and the con and no one would care. It's the exact same kind of thing. The topic could have a negative in it, and the pro and the con wouldn't change. It would just be like they would flip the positions, but their roles would not be meaningfully different because the con can speak first, and they're both just about providing advantages or disadvantages of the resolution. Um,
Mhm.
that actually has weirdly important logical implications for K debate as well, specifically non-topical K debate. The way that non-topical K debate typically works in policy is based around some assumptions that stem from the logical structure of like the affirmative affirms and the negative has a burden of rejoinder to answer the affirmative, right? In policy debate, that is answering the plan. In K debate, that's answering the K, right? Answering the advocacy or the method or whatever it might be. In public forum, that's not really true. It doesn't really make sense. The second constructive doesn't even have to respond to the first constructive at all. That's like not a norm at all. So logically speaking,
I think that's why extinction outweighs the critique warrants in PF probably could play.
yeah, yeah, true. But logically speaking, like if the first constructive reads a non-topical position, you could just do whatever you want. Like you could do
I
anything.
actually, oh my God, I actually love this. I had this conversation with my partner because well, this isn't even a non-topical position, but like I was really big on the Settle critique for the nuclear energy topic. Like I really liked it. And I read a lot of the literature, right? We never got to read the position, which Lucy and I didn't prep that much. Our only practice round that we did before the TOC was on Settle. And I felt very strong, but I went to every round and I'm like, I came in like a policy mindset. I'm like, okay, if we're not second negative, we cannot
Yeah,
read the
right.
position, right? So I was like, they have to link, right?
Yeah.
And honestly, my partner pushed back a little bit. She's like, we could probably still read it. Like I don't, but like I was thinking like they could just go up and say like, okay, we do not endorse the AF. We win and just read a bunch of presumption warrants or something. And I'm like, oh, like yeah, that might be valid. I think Churchill actually had like a unique strategy with this, where they had this like hypo testing argument about like you have to test or like you have a burden of rejoinder. But I think the more like stock better argument is like what you said about like yeah, it's a pro and it's a con. There is no neg and there is no af, which is
Yeah,
like a
exactly.
unique thing that like that is unique to PF, right? Which
Right.
is like I completely agree. Like if I had watched one of your videos probably before the TOC, maybe I would have read it first negative. And we probably would have broken actually, because we had no prep, so we were definitely probably better on the critique than the substance debate. But yeah, no, I completely agree. Like that's something that needs to be like understood more.
Right. I guess the way that I was discussing it with Ishan is I think the the resolution itself is a link to a critique if you're running it first neg, if that makes sense. Like,
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
effectively,
I think the easiest method is literally just go like U.S. federal government, bro. Like you are the con.
yeah,
One is
exactly.
U.S. federal government. I do not like what the U.S. federal government is going to do. Okay, you're a link. Like
Right. Yeah.
they have to go up and say like, okay, we do not endorse resolution.
But then you
Like,
just
okay,
make it like a
fine.
doggy.
You are still a position. Yeah. Like,
Wait, I think if they just don't endorse the resolution, then they aren't offering pros to the topic, so you read topicality.
yeah,
Like the thing
yeah,
about the topical critique is it's still a position. Like it's still a con of the
yeah,
topic.
yeah.
Like your argument is just that if we do the topic, the con of the settler colonial mindset that is necessarily underpinning the topic is it's a DA as well. It's just a harm of the topic. And you haven't provided any benefits of the topic. I don't care what you endorse or what you don't. You are the pro side. We have given
Yeah,
cons. You have not given pros. You lose.
I think there's good arguments to be made. Like, for example, if on cycle you're reading like Henderson, right? Or like pre-fiat arguments about like the reproduction of settler colonialism in academic spaces is bad, right? That's a way in which other teams that are going against a critique can be like, you're reading a pre-fiat warrant that we shouldn't read positions that endorse settler colonialism and that are making us defend settler colonialism. Isn't that like unproductive? Like, I think that's a good argument, right? But I think in the mass amount of cases, like, yes, you should just like read the argument and then read topicality if they don't, because then they're losing
Yeah.
on multiple layers. And I think it's so hard to like, I think topical critiques, like K's are like a meta right now.
Yeah.
I think topical critiques are going to become more and more engaged. And I think once right now, I think I truly believe that like PF debaters, like some teams do know how to read it, but like the substantial amount, like just don't do K debate the right way. And I also think there's really something to be said about time constraints. Like the biggest reason why I think I might do policy next year is I just think you're able to have a more nuanced discussion. Like you're just able, you have more time to talk about X topic, right? I think like PF having a 2 minute speech is like a little auto damning a little bit on like the explanation and articulation of like nuanced specific analysis. But I think that like as we engage in more K debate, we can find more innovative ways to engage, and kids will start watching more DDI lectures. Still, coaches will start being able to teach K debate in a fashion that is better. Like for example, like I would probably be more so definitely a policy coach, but I think like I understand the critique at a level in which I could teach it, right? Which is why like I think once people start reading K's like better, it's gonna get better and better. And it's like a cycle of which like we'll figure out a way to do K debate in a PF way.
Yeah.
I'm still a bit hesitant to like the time stuff. Like that is a big consideration I have personally. I'm just like I just don't like you're not gonna see like an MBA versus Koppel under commons versus race war AF round, right? Like you're just not gonna get that level of nuanced discussion, right? Because you just don't have time, right? But I think there are levels at which you can engage in those positions and still get something out of it in PF. So like I think that's something to be said.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I've heard this critique of PF many times, right? It's too short. Maybe it's too short specifically for nuanced ideas like critiques. I don't know if I agree with this. Like, okay, this is speaking out loud. I'm genuinely not sure where I stand yet. So some of this will maybe play out during this conversation. One idea though is like I feel like the same critique can be leveraged against policy. Like, why is policy enough time? Like, let's pretend that there was a different event that was like, you spend 2 days arguing one topic, and then that event would probably say the same thing about policy, right? They would be like, you think you can talk about like undercommons versus race war in like a 2 hour debate round? You kidding me? Spreading? Like, do you think this is just reading cards like with tags? Do you really think this is actually like a productive discussion of these critical theories? Not at all. Like half the people in this round don't even understand them. The whole point of some of these cases is catch people off guard. And like even when you don't catch people off guard, the highest quality discussion of critiques you can have is still like a joke compared to the kind of thing you could actually talk about over like a week of discourse, right? And maybe that is what we actually should be aspiring to. So why is this like I agree, it's scalar or whatever. PF has less time, so maybe therefore it has less of a nuance that is possible. But I guess my view is that like you I'm not sure why PF is fundamentally different in this regard. I think that it's possible to just reduce the amount of arguments that you have. Or
No,
maybe,
I agree.
yeah,
I just think the level of K debate that's currently in public forum is just like not at that level in which like I don't think at least the K debates that I've probably watched or like engaged in, I just like don't think the level of explanation and articulation is to the level that should be like within a K. I also think they make it way too complex.
Yeah.
Like to be frank, the K is literally just a case.
Yeah.
You can it's like sometimes over uniqueness, it's a link and it's an impact. And the only new thing I guess is an alternative, right? But that's literally just like the resolution in the case of like a case debate, right?
Although I think we should be clear, right? Is like there are fundamentally two types of Ks. We're talking about Ks
Yeah.
that
Or
have like
topical
a
critiques.
topical
Yeah.
critique, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, you're
But
right. Like either way, like either the
like
K is just an argument about the topic. The only new thing is that they advocate for something else instead, or the K is just an argument that says we should win because we have proposed this thing, and otherwise
yeah.
debate is really bad.
I think people like a lot of the times just like I'll find myself like I'll be reading through what they're reading. I'm so confused. Like I'm so ungodly confused. And I would say I'm like I like somewhat read philosophy and I'm so confused. But I think if you just like sit down, and I also think it's something a problem with the K debaters too, of like you go up and cross and you ask them like what is your position, and they'll go into this like crazy complex K extension. I'm like, dog, like just tell me like what you're talking about. I think every K position could be broken down of like, you've done this, this is bad, this is what we think is better. Like, and it could be like 20 seconds, super non-complex, that's super easy. And I think once like debate gets to a form of fashion where like PF debaters like understand their arguments to that extent, um, it's better. I also think a problem, and I've done it too, is like PF recycling of evidence is getting like bad. Like
Yeah.
I'm an endorser of disclosure. Like I think disclosure is good. But I think that like disclosure in other methods of debate, like policy and LD, is so much more prep heavy than PF is, right? And I think that there is something to be said about like I'd rather to be frank, I'd rather spam analytics than read evidence.
Yeah.
So maybe that like informs the way in which I view evidence. Um, but I do think that people are just reading so many positions off the wiki that they don't understand the arguments. Like I think I was learning a lot about debate in my freshman year because almost everything I read, I had cut or my partner had cut because like there wasn't that much on the wiki,
Yeah.
right? But I think now like the reason I convinced my partner to come back or like even I was debating this year, I would be surprised if I cut more than a block or like 10, 15 cards on a topic. Because either one, I had novices that would do it, or two, I would just steal everything from the wiki.
Yeah.
Like the
It's
tournament I
so
did best,
bad. Yeah. It's actually
tournament
like
I did best at was like blue key. We had cut like one position, and I don't think I read blocks like the whole tournament. Like it was just analytic. That's how blue key usually is. But like that's like during the round robin, I would just hear every argument that everybody else ran against me. Think about that, put it analytic in the block file, and then just read. Right. And we finaled blue key. So like I think that like there's something to be said about like if you understand arguments, you're more likely to win on them. And like if you like I would rather you read analytics than like just read somebody else's evidence.
100%, 100%. If I was prepping for a PF tournament right now, I think I would do substantially better if I spent 30 minutes writing my own case with four cards total, maybe, than if I took like a hodgepodge of cards off of the wiki. I would do so much better. It's there's like so many layers to it. Like you understand your arguments better, you understand why they make strategic sense, they're more purposeful, and also like, all right, dog, I'm honestly I'm a disclosure skeptic. I'll be completely frank with you. I think this is like a really bad thing. Like I've seen too many students of mine too, literally just wait for the day before a tournament when like another tournament is happening a day earlier in a different time zone, just steal arguments off of the wiki and then go with that. Like
And I have to say, like, I'm one of those kids now. I've
yeah,
been doing this the whole
it's
year. Like, like, and totally a supporter. Like, I think I would do better if I cut my own arguments. I know I would do better if I just sat down and think. But it's a question of like I'm like everybody to a certain extent is kind of lazy. Like, you
yeah.
see the arguments. Once you get to a level of debate where like you can understand stuff really quickly, like it doesn't impact you at a large scale. So like we'll still steal it and we'll still be winning,
Yeah.
right? But it's a question of like in those really late breaking rounds, where like I think sometimes I've read arguments against the kid who cut the argument and they ask me what the card says. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
wouldn't I like to know? Like I think that's like a position that like kids are in now, and I think that rebuttal disclosure is phenomenal only because it has made me do a lot less work in debate. Um, but I think for like actually um learning for learning's sake or like research or like actually engaging, it's probably not as good. And I think I really don't like that PF has 1 month topics. I'm maybe this is my hot take, but I think that everything should be 2 months, like LD, or it should be bigger. Because I really do believe that like maybe not in the current culture because everybody's recycling prep, but I think in a perfect world, like people would be making. I think the best forms of debate are those like innovative rounds where like you go for a completely new position that you've cut and you're super passionate about it, or like you go for that block about like I really like impact turnarounds. Like I really do. Like I think that like warming good, like prolif, like all those types of debate are kind of like stock now, but like it's fun, right? And I think those are kind of like new, right? And I think once you have topics and you can kind of find those niche literature bases, like my partner Lucy is so good at this. Like she finds the most random things humanly possible and will cut positions off it, and it'll be so fun. Like our
Yeah.
whole freshman year, we read this argument about bauxite colonization in Jamaica, right? We read it on like almost every topic we could. HSR, we said that they would get bauxite to build the HSR from Jamaica. Great power war, we said that if great power competition increased, there'd be more need for weapons, so it increased steel, which needs bauxite from Jamaica, right? And we would win on these colonialism arguments, right? Like, and they're so, I think those types of innovative arguments are like fire. Like, I think that's what debate is. Like, I
Yeah.
think like stock debate is definitely better at winning rounds. Like, I will say, like, I totally subscribe to like, and I think this is kind of a Durham thing too. Like, I remember watching an interview with like Hansen and Huang, who are both really good. Like I also looked up to them a lot, and they're like, yeah, we pick really stock arguments and get very good at the stock arguments, right? And I
Yes.
think something competitively is to be said about like, yeah, that is you'll probably win more rounds doing that. But I also think you can make niche arguments more stock and good, right? And I think that's like something productive on like a research level that like helps. And I think this year is the year I've subscribed to at least just because like junior year was kind of hard. I was probably locked in a little bit more than the previous years. But I definitely think for like debate for debate's sake might be better off if we just
Yeah.
like went back to like limited disclosure or like we went back to like some other method. Like
So
I don't know.
I actually think you're right. Like I think disclosure itself is not bad and probably quite good. I just think that the way people use it is quite bad. And
Exactly.
I
Like
actually
I
think
think we
I,
no no
I
you go.
I have a diagnosis for the root cause, and this is going to be very controversial, I think. Maybe the most controversial thing I've said. I think the worst thing that's happened to debate is writing arguments with only tag card.
Oh my gosh, like the and well I just came from I guess I was trained by like policy debaters.
Yeah.
So like I was kind of trained not to do that. But like yeah,
But
like
I think
I'm
I mean
stealing cards and I'm having to retag all the evidence. And I'm like me and my lazy self, I'm just like, why won't people just put the tag on the card?
wait, but
But
I actually mean even more than that. I mean policy as well. I mean even if you have the best tag and the best cards, I think there's a fundamental loss that occurs in debate when your arguments are only cards. Like the arguments in debate these days, it's like contention one is this: tag, card, tag, card, tag, card, tag, card, contention two. That I think has deeply eroded a lot of important things about debate in my mind. The norm that that is a requirement, like that is effectively a requirement at this point. I think that's
no.
awful. Um,
This is why, okay, this is also a big hot take for me. I used to absolutely hate late debate. Like, I believed that late debate was an abomination. I would lose so many late rounds and just be like, screw, screw, screw. This is not how debate's supposed to function. But as I kind of got good at late debate, and to an extent, I think that winning late rounds might be easier than winning tech rounds in certain circumstances. That, like, I like late debate because I think critically, I feel like more in late debate than I do in tech debate. And I think that's because it's like you have to understand your argument enough to explain it to somebody who has no idea what your argument is. You have to think about how it engages on multiple levels of the debate, and you're not citing cards because they're not going to understand it. You're like explaining it to them like a common person, right? And I think that like to an extent that does develop those critical thinking skills that people continue to
yeah.
like say of technical debate. Like I think that like I still like I would still probably prefer a technical round, but I think that like right the space that PF is trending towards or going towards, like you might get rounds now that you are doing more thinking, more analysis, in lay rounds than you are in tech rounds. And,
For
and I
sure.
think like with card dumping and all this stuff like becoming like pernicious, like that is something that's going to be true. And I think some really like phenomenal debaters, like if you look back, like Mission San Jose, back in the day, they gave it completely off paper. It was mostly analytics. They are phenomenal, right? I even think now, like Del Barton, like I think Zeke does. We've debated Zeke a good amount. Like I think he does a very good job of like not reading too many cards and reading a lot of well nuanced analytics. And I think that's why they win a lot of rounds, right? It's because like they make arguments that are easily understandable and that they can articulate themselves in a back half, which like is really hard to do with cards a lot of the time. Like another thing I really like hate in PF is like you read turns. They read one response on a turn, and you do not go for the turn. I'm a big proponent of just like kick the take case, go for the turn.
Yeah.
Like there's and nobody will go for it because like oh it's one card. I don't know if I can explain it enough. I'm like then you shouldn't be reading that position, right? Like that's how I kind of view it. But I think there's definitely something to be said about like we need more analytics. There is a problem of like evidence in
Yeah.
PF, but yeah,
100%. I mean, I think that people have forgotten what evidence does. Like evidence is not a building block of an argument. It's not the ingredient you use to build arguments. Like it's not the atoms of debate. The atoms of debate are warrants. Evidence is only better than an analytical warrant if it's an empiric or some sort of empirical fact that you can't just get to with a warrant, or if it's some sort of empirical study that like guarantees the truth of a warrant or supports the truth of a warrant and allows you to tie break against some conflicting evidence or some conflicting warrant that would say the opposite.
no,
Um,
yeah.
if it's or if it's a quantification. If it's not one of those things, it literally is equivalent to an analytic. Like there is you cannot convince me that like a random person just because they said it, it's like literally it's so crazy. I feel like this is brain rot. Like people for some reason believe that if I put it on a Medium article, it's suddenly like way more qualified than if I am in the round saying it.
I remember BCC actually, and this is just because I watched so many rounds when I was younger. They had this thing like, if they say do not evaluate, it's an analytic. They read a theory position on that, right? And it's like these types of things that I think are like good. I think in certain circumstances, like evidence is for sure necessary, right? Like I think that like when I was cutting, like I was cutting in my freshman year and a good amount of my sophomore year. Sometimes this year, I would cut like probably like 100 cards per topic. I was like we were like doing a lot of work, right? But what would end up happening is like we would end up going for analytics because like I was just like Lucy, I really like this, and then we would just like end up like sitting on it, right? Like I think if you're able to clearly articulate it, and also when you cut cards, you get better at analytics because
Yeah,
you understand debate better, like as a whole, and you understand the topic
exactly.
better. Like
Exactly.
I think the biggest purpose of doing research and cutting evidence is to inform those analytics, right? Like, and I think there's certain events like I think policy is like not antithetical, but I think in policy I would be cutting and reading a lot more evidence, right? Just because it is more nuanced, and you're not going to trust a high schooler as much as you would on positions that are like very specific to like the plan text of like whether IP should be on X thing, right? But I think a lot of the times in PF, it's just because of the time, like you said, one benefit is that it can't have that much evidence that
Yeah.
has this robust warrants. So yes, you should be making those analytical arguments.
There's
Like,
this is actually, I think my hot take here is I think this is a strategic meta that is underexplored in PF. I think if like literally, I think this is empirically verified. I've done some practice rounds against like the Plano kids, for example, where I read only analytics and like still like nothing changed, for example. I did an LD practice round against Mason from Heritage on Spark, where he read all cards and I read zero cards. I read only analytics. And like it did not matter. There was zero reason that it mattered by the end of the round. And in PF
and I think
specifically, I think this is just a meta. Like it's just strictly better.
I think that it would absolutely be a meta, but the problem is, I think that judges have an inherent bias to believe evidence over analytics, and I think debaters have realized that. Like, for
I
example,
don't
some
think
of
that's
the
true.
I think a lot of first year outs, a lot of debaters in general would be more likely to, if there's like tiebreak and the round is close and one is reading an evidence position and one is reading an analytic position, 10 times out of 10, they are going to pick the evidence,
Well,
right?
yes, yes. But
Like I had a round against Durham, actually. It was Ben and Brown, like William, like I think it was Octos of Blue Key my sophomore year, right? We read this politics position. The evidence was atrocious that we were reading. I think I stole it off the wiki. Um, we beat them on a 2-1. But like they broke the clash on the evidence, right? And it wasn't even that their evidence was bad. They read evidence, right? But like the two other judges were like, yeah, we read the evidence and like I think we sided here, right? And I think that like sometimes people believe that evidence is so much bigger or better than analytics that it's like debaters don't go for analytics because they believe that the judges will not pick up the analytic. And I think to a certain extent that is definitely true. Like I think honestly, older judges are a lot more likely to pick up an analytic than the evidence judges.
really, I disagree. I mean, okay, I think it's a very specific type of judge who will do this, but my argument is mostly you just need to be smart about the analytics. You should be reading analytics that in no way, shape, or form conflict with the empirics. You should be agreeing to every single empiric in the round and winning off of analytics to get around them. That or use all of your empirics or all of your analytics to indict empirics because it's every analytic like the fundamental problem of causality means that there is no such thing as a statistically conclusive study. Like it is impossible to conclude with certainty that there is a causal relationship between two things from doing empirical study. Because it's always possible that it's correlation, it's always possible it's reverse causal, it's always possible there's confounding variables. And no matter how good the study is, it's impossible to eliminate all of that. The study, to be fair, if I have a warrant and you have a warrant, and they're conflicting about the same claim about the truth of some part of the world, and you have a study and I don't, of course you win. Of course. But I would be so stupid to just read only a counter warrant against your study. I think it is like that's just like the worst way to do analytic debate. You shouldn't ever be butting up against studies. You should instead read arguments that circumvent everything else, that render everything else incapable of winning the round just with weighing and with cross applications and with short circuits and things like that. And that is always, always, always possible if you're just smart and creative enough. And like the judges who care about evidence are also the judges who care about the line by line and who care about concessions and who care about non-intervention and things like that by and large. There's very few judges who will actively intervene against an analytic just because it's an analytic if it's conceded. And if they are, like you could very, very easily change their decision with just the right packaging in the back half. Just be like, listen, I know you don't like this argument, whatever, it's blippy, whatever, it's an analytic, but it was conceded, you have to. They could have responded, they didn't, whatever. I think
I,
that
I also think that if you
always dominant.
develop the analytic more, right?
Yeah,
Like I think that like the problem with analytics is like I actually changing my mind a little bit. Good thing debate doesn't make you dogmatic. I agree. Like I think judges would pick up analytics, but I don't think they would. It's like the same thing I low-key do have a problem with like IVI debating. Like I think IVI debating is like a reason to drop somebody that's so blippy. It's usually super underdeveloped. Just read the theory position. That's like my perspective. Same thing could be said about analytics, right? You could either read like a well-developed, articulated like analytic, right? Or you'll read like 6 words, right? Like, and this happens, it'll be 6 words in a speech, then they'll sit on it. And then me as a judge, I'm sitting there. Like I watched around with this. I'm sitting there. I'm like it's conceded technically. Like, I don't know how I should evaluate this. It's a blip. And I think it puts judges in a like so some sort of like kind of like circumstance. Like if I vote for them, they did concede it. But also if I don't vote for them, it was so underdeveloped that like I don't know if I should be voting
yeah,
there.
yeah,
But I
yeah.
think if you do develop the analytics, it becomes so much easier to resolve that debating.
100%. I'll do you a favor, okay? I will make a commitment. I'm gonna do a demo round at some
Okay.
point in the next few months with other Argument Institute coaches. In that demo round, my team will not read any evidence in the entire round,
Okay.
and I will try to win. I want you to watch that round when it comes out and
Okay.
decide if it made a difference. Like decide it
Yeah.
like maybe I'll lose anyway, who knows? But decide if the non-reading of evidence helped or hurt me. Because I suspect most people watch that round and they might change their mind about how important evidence actually is.
No, I agree. I also think like when you're evaluating new positions, like this is also a benefit I think of like niche arguments or like K-debate is like stock positions, you have a block file. A lot of the time somebody else has cut it. You've not thought deeply about it. But when you're in the moment and you're seeing that animal trafficking argument that you have no idea, you actually have to like think. Like
Yeah.
instead of going to your back files and just copy pasting, you're like sitting there like, oh damn, like I actually have to think and respond to this. And I think that's like the best thing about debate. Like I think that's what makes debate fun, right? And that's why I'm a big analytics supporter. Like I think a lot of the times I don't read evidence, which is probably like somewhat bad, but and no, I definitely I completely agree with you.
Yeah, sounds good. Do you have any other questions for me? I probably have to go fairly soon because it's getting late for
Sure.
me. But
No, you're
happy
totally
to.
good. Let's think. How was your well, Plano got to finals of the TOC. How was your kind of like TOC experience?
It was a wild ride. I mean, I was in Taiwan the whole time, so like 12-hour difference from TOC time zone. So that was pretty crazy. So we prepped a ton before. We did like 5 or 6, I think, spars on the April topic where I just debated them or I debated the other team, Ayush and Yang. And we experimented a lot in the spars. We did a lot of different things. We experimented with like fill frameworks. We experimented with Ks. We experimented with like lots of different sort of tricky positions on substance, and then we did some late rounds as well. And I think that was pretty helpful. The tournament itself was really wild because obviously most of the debates are occurring when I'm asleep. So I'm like waking up to different records and stuff and checking the group chat. But I think I mostly increased my prep during like eliminations after the break. Well, actually, there were a few phases of it. I can show you actually some of what I did. Let me screen share some of this after I find it. So we had like a shared prep folder. Um, where is it? This one here. So let me screen share this. So we had a shared prep folder. I don't want to like leak too much, but I mean the topic's over. So this is the stuff that I was working on. So I wrote like a bunch of random stuff before the TOC. So there's some stuff on here. And then during the TOC, I was working on some prep outs. So I there were 2 phases of prep outs that we did. One was after day one, because obviously, like when they're asleep, I'm awake. So I know the brackets that they're in. So I knew that Plano, like Anuj and Arman were in the 4-0, and there were only 7 other teams in the 4-0 at the time. So I tried to prep out all of them. I think I prepped out all of them. And the prep outs were not complete prep outs because I didn't, I mean, even though I had the whole day, like I didn't have like infinite time. So
Yeah.
I didn't cut the cards. I like linked cards. So if they knew that they would be hitting them, they would have enough time to like go and use the 30 minutes of prep or whatever they had to do this. And it would help them in the round. And I would focus mainly on positions that I thought were unique that we didn't already have blocks against. So like for example, this is the strike prep out because they were in the 4-0 as well. I put this at the top because we hit them in front of a lay judge. So I put that there. But then this was their like, so this is politics, for example, which is what they went for in the finals. I don't actually know if Armand and Nuge looked at this because I wasn't awake for finals for the pre-round. I went to bed after semis. But this is the stuff that I like put there. So I would just this is like all analytics for the most part, except for random like links. Um, I put some stuff that was like just delay. Yeah, this one is I think a good response that in my opinion they should have read. That Congress will just have a meeting after the budget reconciliation. Um, and I think there was an empiric at some point. Yeah, this is good. This is good. This turn that budget reconciliation is bad. The bill hurts clean energy subsidies. And Congress will later just pass the military part without the rest of the bill. And a good example is Build Back Better, which actually was a budget reconciliation bill. It didn't get voted on. And then parts of the bill were passed later, like right after, and became the Inflation Reduction Act, which means like we don't need to pass budget reconciliation. So this is just an example. And there's like random like examples.
Yeah.
There's links here. And I would do that for all of the different teams, for all of the different positions. Like we did this for like Eastridge's Guam argument. I just like I put like 8 responses on Guam. And I didn't touch any of the other stuff because I knew we already had blocks on it. And
Yeah.
that went quite well because we ended up hitting Eastridge. We ended up hitting, I think a lot of these teams actually, like we hit Strake, obviously. We hit Eastridge. I don't know if the other, we hit Nueva. So this was the second phase of prep outs that I did. Because we knew at this point that
Oh
Plano,
my gosh, I went against this.
dude, this might be one of my proudest works of a prep out. This prep out went so hard. I can walk you through it real quick before I have to go. But this was my experience. Like literally for the almost the whole day, I was just prepping this one position, and then of course Plano flipped. They flipped the different side. They flipped AF. So then we didn't even hit it. We didn't even hit the Batai AF. So it was all for nothing. But that's what it means to be a coach sometimes. Uh,
Yeah.
so this was my prep out against the Here Comes the Sun K. So I guess you know a little bit about this K as well.
Yeah, well, we hit it. We did. We just went for like a KVK debate. So
Yeah,
I
yeah.
didn't. We didn't really debate the substance of it too hard. But I was reading through it. I was like, I don't understand what's going on here. Let's not do this.
Yeah, yeah. Which I, by the way, I think is a hilariously good strat. Like,
Yeah.
given, I mean, I think that the only risk of that is if they read T on you, because
Yeah, yeah.
technically they can
Because
they have a topical
yeah,
position.
if they had like the pro con thing, but then they were first. They were the non-T AF, and
Right,
we
right.
were neg second, and they were just like I think it was just kind of like that. Oh, like yeah,
Yeah,
they're
yeah,
neg
yeah.
second. Like
So I think that was smart in that round. But yeah, I was pretty proud of this prep out. So what I did here is I just took their advocacy, which was this. And like I think the strat for a lot of these topical Ks is to make an intentionally vague advocacy and then sort of change it throughout the rest of the round. So the strat here is like hold the line on the text of their specific advocacy. They can't change it later. And so it means what it means. It doesn't like they can't reinterpret it later in cross or something or like clarify what it means later. It means what it means. There's a linguistic way to interpret this that has a specific and like one specific way of interpreting it. So the first part of the prep out is just like the text of their advocacy is just the topic. Like they can't pretend that they're fiating anything other than the topic later. They could have, to be clear, like they could have written this differently and fiated something different. They didn't. Like if we read this, if you just like put on your linguistic interpretation hat and you read the words of what they said, it is not technically different from the topic. So
Mhm.
linguistically, they're defending the topic as it is, not as they want it to be. So hold them to that. And then also just like no plans, right? It's in the rules. That's jurisdiction, whatever. And then this is sneaky. This is sneaky. So I'll show you the carded version because this is just the reading version. But I found this card that says the term investment must have an objective meaning. And there's one positive definition that has prevailed. It says investment has to meet certain factors to be considered investment, and that includes profit and development as goals. And obviously, the thesis of the Batayaf is like we want to affirm nuclear energy as like an unproductive expenditure. And so the fact that they still included invest actually in their advocacy, where is it? It's it's right.
I actually these types of definitional arguments are so like low-key interesting to me
Yeah,
because basically what our strat was if somebody read like non-T on the FemK is we cut def like people for some reason a meta in debate right now and Strike doesn't do this but a lot of other teams they read T without reading definitions of what the topic should be. So what me and Lucy did is like it's an investment in nuclear energy. So we
right.
said invest means to change. We said nuclear means within oneself. We meant energy as a productive invest. So we cut definitions that specifically linked to our positions, right? So no matter what, we are topical because they have not provided a stasis point for what the definitions of what they're saying is topical. So it's
Yeah.
not topical. Right. And I think there's so many arguments you could make on that of like whether or not a position like it's and it also increases the creativity because it low-key does explode the bounds of the topic, which is the argument against it. But like it does like mean you could do a lot more things.
You want to hear something sneaky that's related to that? One idea that I came up with recently against some non-T Ks is to read T against them with the most creative interpretations of the resolution. So like the kind of T that they would normally read, but read that as
Yeah.
the interpretation of the topic against them, and then just narrowly exclude their advocacy, and then go for the TVA. So then say like they
Yeah,
should
yeah, yeah.
Like they should have affirmed an investment of nuclear energy within oneself, which would have been topical, but they didn't. They intentionally chose to go against the topic. And so like then it becomes incredibly difficult for them to argue against T because you're not taking the standard interpretation of the resolution. You're taking the most expansive one that they just happen to narrowly violate. And it makes the TVA like almost unbeatable. Like you should
No,
have
yeah, that
metaphorically affirmed the topic, but instead you just ditched it entirely.
no, no, no.
Uh,
Yeah, I think that's really smart. I wish we spent this much time on prep. Our pre-round is usually like us seeing the position, reading it, and me just going in, popping analytics and throwing cards in. But
yeah,
that's actually super tough.
but
I still remember we were at Blue Key round robin. I wake up the next morning and like we're pretty good friends with a lot of the round robin teams. So I wake up to a text and it's like Matt Case prepped us all out. I remember I was like, okay. It was super funny, but
yeah, sorry. No, no hard feelings, hopefully.
no. I was like, I don't know how you do so like that much prep in such a limited amount of time. Like it's actually ridiculous.
Go quick, you know. I think
Yeah.
it's from APTA mostly. I didn't talk a lot about this, but APTA is a type of parliamentary debate in college that I did that's super fun. It's like the most free form of debate. The pro always chooses the topic. It's effectively like policy, but there's no topics, there's no resolution at all, but you
That's
still
actually crazy.
so you get to say any, there's obviously theoretical limits, like the other side can say this is an unfair topic, um, or this is it might be fair, but it would require too much specific information that we can't have known before the round because we only have 50 minutes to prep without the internet. But it's so fun because it like forces you to extemporaneously come up with like as many warrants for something as possible, and it's tech. Like people go for like extinction outweighs and stuff on random stuff, but they just
This is why you love analytics so much too.
yeah, probably, but it helps, you know. So I want to just get through the rest of the this prep, and then I probably will have to leave to go to bed.
Yeah.
Uh,
Whenever you want. Yep.
yeah, sounds good. So there's like two other things I think were really cool in this prep out. One is this part that's like if you do grant them fiat, so like if they get some random imaginative fiat to like interpret the resolution in a completely different way, this is PF. There's no reason we don't also get that, right? Like, it would be completely illogical to give them fiat and not us, given that the sides are symmetric anyway. So then we advocate for just firing all of the nuclear weapons or all of the nuclear energy, like put it on a spaceship, throw it into space, and explode it like a firework, or just do like a word pick kind of thing. So we negate the word investment, and so we keep all of the same stuff, but we just negate the resolution instead. And this seems like necessarily a con.
Why did you guys flip AF?
Well, okay, I didn't have a lot of time to pre-round them on this. Like, I sort of we spent a few minutes talking about this. But I think the idea was they wanted to flip neg in order to prevent the K at all. Uh, I think this unfortunately still relies on a logic that is false in PF of like this logic that they won't read the K if they're second F. Or if they're second neg rather. Like obviously they'll just read a different K, and this probably will just be a different kind of debate that we're less prepared for. But I don't know. I didn't have a lot. I didn't have say in the flip. I just was doing prep outs. You know, I don't want to be that controlling. Um, and then I was just like, the topic is bad. Your regardless of how we interpret what you're doing, your method requires uranium extraction, right? Like if we're unproductively expending uranium, it still requires you to dig it out of the ground to then unproductively
Yeah, yeah.
extract. And so then I just read like a sort of set call link. It's not really set call. It's not set call at all actually, but it's similar. It's about sacrifice zones, and it's basically just a DA with framing on it. It has a sneaky alt. It's just like we should do degrowth instead, which solves because
That's
it
actually fire. Yeah.
and then
Reading some like Peninsula stuff.
right. And then this is the biggest part is I think that the entire K was just miswritten for the affirmative. So I recut like all of their evidence, negative instead, because like let's see, where's all of the recuts? They were reading all of this evidence that said, uh, that basically said nuclear energy like is productive and it increases these really bad things. So I read this card that says like nuclear energy increases the Anthropocene. And then I re-highlighted all of their cards about like never-ending growth from nuclear energy. Like that sounds like productive, right? And
Yeah, yeah,
all of this stuff, like they tagged this evidence as like waste is unproductive, but the evidence like in yellow, it says that it's recycled infinitely and it gets put back into the capitalist order. So we were just like, all of this is evidence for why there's
yeah.
more.
I think this also poses something like a thing about PF, which is why I wish we had like 10 minutes of prep low key, is like re-highlighting is actually like better than like it's most of the evidence like I think evidence quality is definitely increased, but like I would bet in every single one of a case anybody's ever reading, you could re-highlight and win that position just off the re-highlighting.
That's so
Like,
true. That's so
no,
true. Dude, oh
yeah.
my gosh. There's some really bad stuff out there. I think that is probably true of like literally any position.
Yeah.
I'm like right in the middle of recording my TOC finals round analysis, which is going to be a lot of yap. It's like probably going to be 4 hours, unfortunately. But a lot of it was like going through some of the evidence and the constructives. And yeah, it's surprising. Like, I think how many problems exist in some of these cards that people just don't really bother reading. Um,
Yeah. I think that's another timing thing of PF that might be that
yeah.
might hurt. But hey, if we just had analytics, that wouldn't even be a problem.
Yeah, true. We're on the same wavelength. But thank you so much for talking with me, Nikhil. This has been
No, of course.
you.
Super happy to have this. Hopefully, well, Mac is also on our adult advisory board for outreach now, and I'm sure he's gonna help us a lot, increase our mission and our accessibility. But yeah, super happy.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. I'll see you later. Bye bye.